What is going on, you guys? It's Ron here with your second stimulus check update and stimulus package update. I hope you guys are doing very well today. I've got so many updates to provide you guys with today. In fact, many Americans, although the opinions have been mixed on, whether or not to be happy about the $600 stimulus checks going out to the American people next week or being disappointed about the size of the stimulus checks. However, President Trump threw us a curveball last night that I don't think anyone could have predicted. And honestly, I probably would not have even been aware of it as quickly had it not been for my Facebook group. And I just wanted to, send a quick shout out to, one of my subscribers, Cassandra Stubbs. I really appreciate you guys, for kind of keeping me in the loop. You guys are always on top of things. I've always said in my previous videos, as I do my introductions, I thank, all my existing subscribers, I welcome my new subscribers. And, I always thank you guys for the information that you guys share with me about, state and local stimulus programs. But in this case, Cassandra Stubbs was among several people who were in the group that were kind of saying last night, Trump did not sign the bill, so I guess it's time for another round of crap. And then Cassandra Stubbs said, is it finalized? Because I just saw this and I checked it out and I was like, holy cow, this information just came out. President Trump was demanding anywhere between $2,000 and $4,000 stimulus checks. So, I definitely want to, number one, I want to share with you guys exactly what President Trump said about this. And I also want to share with you guys and kind of fully unpack the implications that President Trump kind of, puts Congress in and potentially puts a lot more money into the American people's pockets, potentially very quickly. A lot of new details have come out since yesterday, so I definitely want to first share what President Trump has said, and then let's unpack what this means for the American people.
Throughout the summer, Democrats cruelly blocked COVID relief legislation in an effort to advance their extreme left-wing agenda and influence the election. Then, a few months ago, Congress started negotiations on a new package to get urgently needed help to the American people. It's taken forever. However, the bill they are now planning to send back to my desk is much different than anticipated. It really is a disgrace. For example, among the more than 5,000 pages in this bill, which nobody in Congress has read because of its length and complexity, it's called the COVID Relief Bill, but it has almost nothing to do with COVID. This bill contains $85.5 million for assistance to Cambodia, $134 million to Burma, $1.3 billion for Egypt and the Egyptian military, which will go out and buy almost exclusively Russian military equipment, $25 million for democracy and gender programs in Pakistan, $505 million to Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama. $40 million for the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., which is not even open for business. $1 billion.
Now, guys, I just want to point out how many countries billions of dollars are going out to. But, just a couple of days ago, we were only able to come up with $600 for the American people. So, just keep that in mind.
$1 billion for the Smithsonian and an additional $154 million for the National Gallery of Art. Likewise, these facilities are essentially not open. $7 million for reef fish management, $25 million to combat Asian carp, $2.5 million to count the number of amberjack fish in the Gulf of Mexico, a provision to promote the breeding of fish in federal hatcheries, $3 million in poultry production technology, $2 million to research the impact of down trees, $566 million for construction projects at the FBI. The bill also allows stimulus checks for the family members of illegal aliens, allowing them to get up to $1,800 each. This is far more than the Americans are given. Despite all of this wasteful spending and much more, the $900 billion package provides hardworking taxpayers with only $600 each in relief payments. And not enough money is given to small businesses, and in particular restaurants, whose owners have suffered so grievously. They were only given a deduction for others to use in business their restaurant for 2 years. This 2-year period must be withdrawn, which will allow the owners to obtain financing and get their restaurants back in condition. Congress can terminate it at a much later date, but 2 years is not acceptable. It's not enough. Congress found plenty of money for foreign countries, lobbyists, and special interests while sending the bare minimum to the American people who need it. It wasn't their fault. It was China's fault, not their fault. I am asking Congress to amend this bill and increase the ridiculously low $600 to $2,000 or $4,000 for a couple. I'm also asking Congress to immediately get rid of the wasteful and unnecessary items from this legislation and to send me a suitable bill, or else the next administration will have to deliver a COVID relief package, and maybe that administration will be me, and we will get it done. Thank you very much.
All right, guys, so there you have it. You've got President Trump, here in the last few moments of his presidency coming out with this curveball here. And, this really changes the game. Now, number one, first and foremost, this was really surprising to see. Nancy Pelosi actually shared this tweet. It says Republicans repeatedly refused to say what amount the president wanted for direct checks. At last, the president has agreed to $2,000. Democrats are ready to bring this to the floor this week by unanimous consent. Let's do it. Now, first and foremost, even if the president didn't say exactly, how much he wanted stimulus checks to be, I don't understand why you would offer $600 to start off with. Why not just offer $1,200? Vote on that, pass it through the House, send it to the Senate, but to send out $600, even if you didn't understand what the president's demands might have been for stimulus checks, he always said that he wanted larger stimulus checks, not smaller. So to start off with $600 is kind of beyond me. So at this point, President Trump is demanding that the $600 stimulus checks be raised to $2,000 for the American people. And we've also heard from Jon Ossoff here. He also says $2,000 stimulus checks now. So we already know exactly where Jon Ossoff stands. Now, this is a very unique position that President Trump is kind of putting the Senate Republicans in. As you guys know, the Georgia runoff election is actually going to be taking place very, very soon. And there are 2 seats remaining. Now, based on the butts that end up filling these seats, this will determine who's actually going to be running the Senate. Now, if we go to 270 to win, we can take a look and we can see that the House of Representatives is already being dominated by the Democrats, sitting at 222 seats for the Democrats compared to 211 seats held by the Republicans. However, the Senate election is still in play right now. You've got the Georgia runoff right now, and what we can see here is that you've got Democrats sitting at 48 seats and you've got the Republicans sitting at 50. Now, we've already heard from Jon Ossoff. He responded to President Trump's tweet. He indicated that, send out $2,000 checks right now. So what does this tell us? We already know that the Democrats are on board for additional $2,000 stimulus checks. In fact, several months ago, Bernie Sanders, as well as several other Democrats, were the founders of the $2,000 stimulus check bill for the American people.
Madam President, several months ago, I introduced legislation along with Senator Kamala Harris, now our Vice President-elect, and Senator Markey, that would, during the course of this economic crisis, provide $2,000 a month, $2,000 a month to every working class person in this country. And frankly, that is exactly what we should be doing.
And so with that being said, we already know that the Democrats are on board with this. And so here's where it gets really interesting. We already know that the House of Representatives is run by the Democrats. And we already know that the Democrats are in full support of sending out additional $2,000 stimulus checks for the American people. And so President Trump's speech puts the Senate Republicans in a very tough predicament. And so essentially what happens here is this. So first and foremost, we already know that if a vote is taken in the House for $2,000 stimulus checks for the American people, the House will vote in favor for that bill. So that's pretty much a box that can be easily checked. And in fact, according to Rashida Tlaib, as well as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, also known as AOC, She says that me and AOC have the amendment already. Send the bill back and we'll put in the $2,000 we've been fighting for that your party has been blocking. And then she shows a screenshot of the Amendment to Rules Committee. 1, in subsection A1, strike $600 in parentheses, $1,200 in the case of eligible individuals filing a joint return, and insert $2,000 or $4,000 in the case of eligible individuals filing a joint return. So we already know where the Democrats stand on this. They're definitely going to support $2,000 stimulus checks for the American people. So the question is, what does this do for the Senate Republicans? Now, this creates a big problem for them. Number one, they're either A, going to have to pass the stimulus checks, the $2,000 stimulus checks for the American people, or the blame is going to be directly placed on the Republicans for not getting stimulus checks out to the American people. But what massive problem does this create for the Republicans is that you've got Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, who are both running as Democrats for the Senate seats that are still outstanding to be filled. So what does this do? If they fill those two seats, that literally creates a 50-50 tie between the Democrats and the Republicans in the Senate. Now, you've got Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, who would be the tiebreaker for the Senate. So essentially what this does is this puts Republicans in the Senate in a very tough position, because if they don't vote for $2,000 stimulus checks for the American people, then who do you think the American people are going to vote for? And so this puts the Republicans in a very tough position, because if they don't vote for $2,000 stimulus checks for the American people, then what's going to happen in the Georgia runoff elections? More than likely, the majority of people are going to say, hey, we want $2,000 stimulus checks. We're just going to vote for the people who would support that. And that would be Jon Ossoff as well as Raphael Warnock. And so at that point, if those two Democratic candidates land the two remaining seats in the Senate, that creates a 50-50 tie in the Senate. And then you've got Kamala Harris sitting as the Vice President-elect Democratic tiebreaker for the Senate. And so essentially, President Trump's decision could force $2,000 stimulus checks to be sent out nearly immediately, or this could cause the Republicans to lose control over the Senate, and it would ultimately become a democratically led Senate. So this is definitely going to be very interesting in the coming days. Now, this is definitely a complicated and sticky situation, and I'm a bit torn. I would love to know what you guys think about this, and I'm a bit torn for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, all we needed was President Trump's final signature in order to get $600 stimulus checks out to the American people, and we were expecting that as early as next week. Now, if President Trump kind of holds off and doesn't sign this definitely would delay those things. But at the same time, it might be worth it if President Trump's able to get $2,000 out to the American people. So it's almost kind of like you almost have $600, plus guaranteed on the one hand, but then you've got a potential $2,000 or more, which is not guaranteed on the other hand. So, I would love to know from you guys' perspective, would you rather take the guaranteed $600 stimulus checks, or is it worth the risk kind of holding out for the $2,000 stimulus check? I'd love to hear from you guys. And the last thing that I wanted to cover with you guys was the $900 billion stimulus package that does include the $600 stimulus checks for the American people. The Senate cleared the huge relief package by a vote of 92-6 after the House approved it by another lopsided vote of 359-53. Now, the big question is, President Trump is demanding $2,000 stimulus checks, and if not, what will he do? If he sits on it, after 10 days, essentially it's just going to pass if he doesn't do anything. However, President Trump could, also sign off on it and kind of give in and just say, hey, get money out to the American people, or he could veto this. Now, the question is, if President Trump were to veto the bill, what would actually happen? Now, keep in mind these votes. 92-6 from the Senate voted for the bill for the $900 billion stimulus package, but also the House voted at a vote of 359-53, shooting it down, right? Now, here's something that no one's really talking about. Congress can actually override a presidential veto by passing the act by a 2/3 vote in both the House and the Senate. Usually an act is passed with a simple majority. The president's veto power is significant because Congress rarely overrides vetoes out at 1,484 regular votes. Since 1789, only 7% or 106 have ever been overridden. So that gives you so essentially that gives you perspective on how infrequent a veto is ever overridden. However, what it does tell you is that based on the number of votes that have come in on this $900 billion stimulus package, technically, due to the ratio of votes coming from the House and from the Senate, technically, if President Trump does veto the bill, Congress could actually override his veto, and they could just say, hey, we're passing this thing. We don't care what you say. We're getting money out to the American people, and that's pretty much it. And then at that point, the next step, and I'm hearing a lot more about this, President-elect Joe Biden is looking at passing a third stimulus check for the American people. So things are getting very, very interesting. I wanted to just kind of go over this and unpack this with you guys. There is a lot here. There is a lot coming up. So if you have not already, definitely subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so that you know as soon as I release new videos and content. I will continue to keep my ear to the ground and my eyes open for any new information on this breaking news as new developments happen. But anyway, guys, I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.